everybody, I'm Debby Montgomery Johnson, founder of the nonprofit The Woman Behind the Smile, and your host of Stand Up and Speak Up, a show that is about each and every one of us. Many of us have something we're hiding, something we're ashamed of, something that through no fault of our own or through our own making we keep hidden, and that in turn keeps us hidden from each other and the world. Good people go through terrible situations. Wise people know when and how to let it go. Everything that happens to us helps us grow, and while it may be hard to see it right away, the most important thing to do is to change your perception about your circumstances. Regardless of what your personal experiences or traumas have been, this showcase series is designed to ignite the light in you, as well as providing safe harbor, education, personal growth, and resources so that no matter where you are on your journey, you'll have the courage to move on when you're ready. Stand Up and Speak Up features ordinary people who've been through extraordinary situations and struggles and found the courage to step out from behind their smiles and speak up about their experiences and the lessons gleaned from those experiences. Everybody heals at a different pace, and we recognize that. So come on in, have a listen, and enjoy the ride at your own speed.
Good morning, everybody. This is Debby coming to you from South Florida, and it is another day in paradise. It is a beautiful day today, and I love to get my friends in Canada who are probably freezing, but maybe not so much right now. In the winter, I love to say it's beautiful in Florida. It's warm. Come on down to visit. And I know they're going to be watching this replay later on. So guys, it's another day in paradise, and I'm so excited to be here today. We are into summer in Florida. We are into summer in the desert of California, and that's where my guest is coming from. She is a hot lady. And we're so excited to have Miss Mel Mason with us today. Mel, thank you so much for being my guest.
Thanks so much for having me, Debby. It is another day in paradise. You're in Florida. I'm in Palm Desert, California. I think we like it hot.
You like it hot. I like the breezes coming off of the ocean. But yeah, it's lots of fun. And as I was just telling you, I did my research on you this morning, and I knew a little bit about you. I had a couple of pages of notes, but I've spent the last 3 hours watching your YouTube videos. So folks, if you don't get enough of Mel in our 40 minutes here today, I want you to go onto YouTube, put her in there. Don't put Mel Gibson. I keep writing Mel Gibson. I'm like, there must be something going on with me and Mel Gibson. Mel Mason, the Clutter Expert. And really briefly, I don't like to do bios usually because we talk about who you are and what's going on. But Mel's mission is to empower the people around the world to get free from clutter inside and out. And I gotta tell you, I'm a pretty organized person, but I do kind of have boxes that I put stuff into and then I just sort of leave them. Thinking, but this morning you got me up and I have a clean sink every morning, except for this morning. And I had the dishes from last night and I was like, oh, I got to wash the dishes before I get on the show with Mel. It's really crazy. So Miss Mel, let's just jump right in because this hour, 40 minutes is going to fly by. And I always start my shows with a little bit of background of my guests. So can you tell me where you're from originally and siblings, family situation when you were young?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally from Massachusetts, where it's cold. I was born on the wrong coast. I have my mom and my dad separated when I was about 4. My dad had a son from a previous marriage, so I had a half brother who committed suicide when I was 15. And then my mom got involved with someone. I think I was there's like 9 years between us. I have a younger sister who's about 9 years younger than me. We have the same mom, different dads. And those are my sibling pair.
So yeah, it was a blended family, which is always an interesting thing. And I think that's more the norm these days than not. When you were little, did you like to do sports or read, or what were your hobbies?
I was always outside playing in the dirt, building forts. We used to make our own like bows and arrows, build forts, just play out in the woods. I actually don't even know where I learned this from, but about the age of 5, I remember my mom used to work third shift and I got money out of her purse. And this is back when you could go to the store and like buy your parents cigarettes with a note or whatever. And so I went to the store and I bought a box of 50 packs of matches. And I used to sit out in the woods and I made my little rock circle and I would sit there and I would burn stuff. Like I was a total fire starter when I was a kid.
Oh dear. As long as you didn't burn the forest, it was probably okay.
No, I had my little rock circle and I do not know where I learned that at 5 years old. Everything was contained in my little rock circle until I got caught one day. This kid that I got into a fight with, I beat him up. Then he told my aunt I was out there burning stuff and I got in trouble.
Oh, you hate those people that rat on you.
Yeah, I guess I was beating boys up at a young age. So.
Oh, that's interesting. I have 3 boys and a girl, and I told my daughter if she ever wanted to go on a date when she was 16, she had to get her black belt in karate. And she did. She was a 2-stripe black belt, and her legs were killers. And so I was like, the boys stopped. My son started, and then they dropped out because once their sister could bring her leg up and smack him in the head, they were done. So anyway, go for you. Good for you. And beating up the bullies at a young age. So we could laugh through this whole thing because it's so much fun. And I connect with so many things that you do. But there was a time in your life, though, that was pretty dark. And that was the dark period with your brother. And the reason I bring that up is because my show is about women particularly that have been through something very traumatic. And I want to give them hope that no matter what happens in our lives, we can rise from that and make some good out of what has happened. So can you go a little bit into what happened with your brother and why you were with him? Why were you living with him and all those kinds of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely did not like living with my mom. My parents separated when I was younger. I was rebellious. I was always running away. I had already, I started drinking alcohol, I think at the age of 10, and I was doing drugs with my brother at like the age of 13, constantly running away, just unhappy. And so I went to live with my brother, but he was also one of my sexual abusers. And while I was living with him, he was 5 years older than me. So I was 15, he was 20. And at that time he was like, he had been through hell. He had lived in foster homes. His mom gave him up and put him in foster homes. And our dad was like too irresponsible to take care of him. So he wound up in the system and getting traumatized and abused. And so he had his own horrible life of abuse. And his mother was super, super abusive, to the point where she actually threatened my father with a knife, like held a knife to my father's throat. So she was the abuser in the relationship. And so when my brother had me come live with him, it was like the proudest moment in his life. He was like so proud to like be taking care of his sister. But he also had this guilt for the abuse that he had done to me. And he actually started questioning me about it while I was living with him. And I got to the point where I was able to tell him that, yeah, it did have an effect on me. And he couldn't handle that. The night that I told him that it affected me, he told me that he would have my stuff packed for me, and I was going to stay with a friend of mine. A friend of mine was coming to pick me up, and I was going to stay with her and her parents. And he told me he would have my stuff packed for me the very next day. And when I came to pick up my stuff is when I found him. He had hung himself in his living room.
Oh my gosh, Mel, I can't imagine how you felt. And what did the people around you, how did they help you through that?
I was very blessed. The people that I was staying with, I actually stayed with them for a little while. I lived with them for a little while, but I pretty much spiraled downhill. I was already not in a good place, and I pretty much spiraled downhill. But I remember when I found him, it was the most peaceful I had ever seen him. Oh, wow. When he was just, he was in so much pain that it was like the most peaceful I ever saw him. And I was completely numb when I opened the door. I was in shock, completely numb. And he also left everything he owned to me. And so after the body was clear and the house was clear, I got to go back into his apartment and go through everything that he owned and figure out what I was going to keep and what other people could have and all of that stuff. And I remember it being one of the most eerie experiences I've ever been. It was like being in a haunted house. It was so weird.
Was there any time that you felt, I knew you were young, but did you ever feel responsible
Oh, 100%. Like I totally felt responsible that if I never told him that the abuse affected me, that he would still be here.
Which we know is not true.
Right. Absolutely. But for
Yeah.
years, I definitely carried that. For years, I definitely carried that.
And I work with a lot of women and myself also that have gone through victim blame. And did that ever, how did that affect you? Did anybody else say anything to you, or did they just kind of, they recognized it wasn't your fault, most likely, but.
Yeah, I mean, everybody recognized it wasn't my fault. Nobody thought it was my fault, but I don't think anybody could convince me when I was younger than it was. And it was such a traumatic experience for me that I actually made the conscious decision that I was going, my real name, full name is Melinda. I go by Mel. And at that time in my life, I was going by Melinda. And I made the decision that Melinda had died. And I was now going to live my life as my brother. Like I started walking like him, talking like him. I dressed in his clothes. Like I totally shifted my identity. And that's what really scared people. And I had planned to kill myself exactly as he did. And so I got kicked out of my sophomore year of high school about a month later after his suicide, because they said I was a danger to myself and others, and I couldn't come back until I got intensive therapy.
And so you went to residential?
Yeah. So first it goes, you get put into a psychiatric ward. And then from the psychiatric ward, you go to a diagnostic center for a month. And then after the diagnostic center, they determine you're like, oh, you still can't go home. You get to go live here for the next year and a half of your life.
My insides are just going crazy right now, because I'm thinking that you're 15 years old, which is a tough enough time for a young woman anyway. You know, you're already going through the not enoughs and all those limiting beliefs that we had at 15. And now you're tossed into the system. Any family around? Because you were living with your brother at the time, so you weren't with your mother and dad.
Yeah, I mean, they were still in my life. When I got institutionalized, they were all coming to family meetings and therapy and coming to visit. And then, you know, when I got out, I went back and lived with my mom. But yeah, my family was definitely around and supportive and participating in the treatment. And might I say that I also, it wasn't the first time I was institutionalized. I actually, it was like a year before I had tried to overdose. I had taken a bunch of pills and overdosed and got put in a psychiatric ward at 4. I celebrated my 14th birthday in a psychiatric ward.
Well, thank you for being so open and vulnerable about talking about it, because I know a lot of mental health is such a huge issue right now, and people are bringing it to the forefront. But I know growing up, and I'm older than you, but that was not something that was talked about. Right. And even after my husband passed away and the things that have happened to me, when we talk to our survivors, it's like, you've got to see a therapist. You have to have some sort of outlet, rather than, okay, let's put up the smile, let's put up the mask, let's pretend everything's fine. When inside you're just dying. You need to have that outlet to open up. And I'm really grateful that you're doing that. And that you have been doing that for yourself and for others, because it's a tough thing to try to get through this by yourself.
Yeah. And I'll share one other thing. I got institutionalized in the psychiatric ward. And at that point in life, my dad had really good insurance. So it was a really good psychiatric ward. I mean, it was catered, the food was catered by the Marriott. We had a registered music therapist, an art therapist, and then the gym downstairs had my first introduction to rock climbing. Almost, it had, because I do indoor rock climbing. It had an indoor rock climbing wall, and so it was like heaven living there. That sounds like. And so after I was there for a month, and then they released me, and I literally overdosed again just so I could go back.
Oh my gosh! So have I frozen up? Can you hear me? Oh goodness. Wow. Yeah, it's kind of like, well, I've had family who have spent some time behind bars, and the recidivism aspect of that is huge. No, I was talking about, I have one of my sons spent some time behind jail bars, and it came after his dad passed away, and I talk very openly about that, and so does he. But at the time, I didn't talk about it at all. And it was very difficult for someone that had never been in that situation I was looking at it very judgmentally from my own point of view, thinking, why are we in this situation? And then after it was over, I'm looking at the whole system going, this is why recidivism is so huge, because it's easier for the kids to go back than it is for them to get through life on the outside.
Yeah, that institutionalization is a real thing. I mean, being institutionalized in the psychiatric ward, I've been to jail. It's much easier. I got put into DYS before I ever went into a psychiatric ward. I was arrested as a teenager and lived in DYS, and it's much easier to live inside somewhere. It's safe.
It is safe. And I told my son, I said,
the 3 hots and a cot.
Exactly. And as long as you don't get in a fight, which I had to learn that the hard way, I said, just keep yourself safe. At this point, everybody, we had a technical problem and I lost computer power, internet power, and Mel and I have decided to reschedule our conversation again at another time. But I want you to know that this is a really important discussion about the things that have kept us hidden in the past. Mel is very vulnerable and open about her issues with her brother and his suicide, the things that have created a lot of clutter in her life. She's worked on them from the inside out, and I encourage you to go to her website. Actually, go to freegiftfrommel.com and download her book. And tonight I will put a link out for the webinar she's doing on what's clutter got to do with it. It's an important discussion, and I was so looking forward to our conversation, but I guess she would say this is a God thing, and she and I will reschedule. So again, thanks very much for being with us on Stand Up and Speak Up. Until we meet again, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Stand Up and Speak Up. We are dedicated to encouraging you to remove the mask of embarrassment and to being your best self. If you are the victim of a scam or cybercrime, please visit againstscams.org for assistance and guidance about options and recovery. SCARS, the Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams, is an incorporated nonprofit crime victims assistance organization based in Miami, Florida, supporting scam victims worldwide. If you can, make a small donation to help victims around the world receive the help they need. This episode has been sponsored by BenfoComplete.com, a vitamin supplement company that supports happy and healthy hands and feet for those with neuropathy. If you or anyone you know struggles with the pins and needles or numbness in their hands and feet, check out our benfotiamine products at BenfoComplete.com. Use the special code STANDUP for a 5% discount on your purchase. Again, thank you for being with us today. Go to my website, The Woman Behind the Smile, for additional resources and information. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and enjoy the replays. My books are all available on Amazon.com and Audible, and I encourage you to join us again. Have a great day.